This election year, Democrats increased the majorities in the House and the Senate. Of course, they took the White House. Are the pieces in place now for President Obama to make this a transformative presidency? You know, he talked about that when he was running for president, the difference between a president who does little things, symbolic things. He said that Clinton did that, Carter did that, and presidents like LBJ and FDR who does big stuff. Joining us to talk about the question of bigness in this new administration and, to some extent, guts, Mike Feldman, who worked for Vice President Al Gore and the Clinton-Gore team, and, of course, Republican Judge John Feer, who's a good sport. He comes here. He was communications director for Dennis Hastert, who, by the way, left office clean and happy, which is a good piece of work by you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Let me, notice how I say those things. Let me ask you, Mike Feldman. It seems to me that this guy ran for President Barack with big promises. He said, I'm going to be the change that you can believe in. Middle-class tax cuts, energy, independence from oil, real health care for everybody, maybe not mandated, but everybody can have it. Climate change, deal with that. Big stuff, WPA-type, Roosevelt kind of jobs programs, infrastructure, putting the roads back together, bridges back together. Big time. Is he going to do it?
I think he is. And I think bold transformational change doesn't necessarily mean winning on a party line vote. So I think that's why you see him meeting with John McCain. That's why you see him reaching out to Republicans. That's why you see him showing that he's going to govern from the center, because big, bold, transformational change
you are totally in tune with it. You must have read this. This is what Rahm Emanuel, the new Ramrod.
Well,
now,
Rahm's
you
a very
are
smart
totally
man.
in line. He has just got the talking points. This is what Rahm Emanuel said. The good news about the terrible economy is that there's a silver lining. It is that the problems are so big right now that they lend themselves to ideas that both parties can go for. In other words, we're in such a ditch that even Republicans are willing to say, let's try some of these big moves like jobs bills. Let's try something like energy, green jobs, 5 million. Let's put people to work. What do you think, John, being the Republican here?
Show me the money. Where are you going to get the money?
Borrow it.
Especially
same place we get the money for Wall Street.
Borrow it, and at some point in time, you're going to hit we're going to be bankrupt. Look at this. The Congress is already running into this. This is why they're.
You can handle this one. This is so easy.
You should
How come whenever business is in trouble, magically these checks come out of nowhere? As Mario Cuomo said, where'd that $100 million come from for the SNLs? Where's the $720 come from for the big banks in New York? And yet, when you want to do health care, we're out of money.
Chris, you know this.
Where's it come from?
I do. When you're in government, you look at the money. You actually have to figure it out, and you just can't keep printing it out.
Why do they do it for the big guys?
For universal health care, it costs billions and hundreds of billions of dollars, trillions of dollars.
How can they do that whenever they had
especially
the rich guy? I sound like a populist. Look, Michael, it's your job. It seems like every time rich people get in trouble, we got money, and every time poor people get in trouble, we can't afford health care, we're broke.
Yeah, but that's
by the way, if you want a war, there's always money for a war.
That's why, by the way, each of these issues, you hear the president-elect now talking about them in terms of jobs. Okay, health care. Lowering the cost of health care is going to help small businesses hire more people. That's a fact. The energy and economy, the green economy, that's a stimulus. Infrastructure, again, putting people back to work. Each one of these issues is going to be talked about in terms of job creation and helping the middle class. That's what you hear.
So we can write the checks. The government can write the checks.
Well, look, it's an investment. And by the way, at a time right now when most American people who are looking at that little box in the corner, they want to see that investment.
You know as well as I do that the money is important. And you have to find the money. And what Barack Obama has already talked about, raising taxes to pay for this. And at some point in time, the economy is not going to allow all that.
He said his tax cuts will have a net reduction effect.
Sure.
He said the purpose of tax cuts is not to redistribute. That's what he's been saying since the election. It is to give tax cuts to the middle class as a net reduction.
Tax costs for the middle class are probably going to go out the window because you got to pay for everything else. You got to pay for this bailout. You got to pay for everything. And I hate to be the
Republicans
skunk at the
government. You guys run deficits for 8 years.
This is the part of fiscal responsibility.
Well, part of there's a method to the madness. Now you can't spend any more money because we're out of it.
Michael,
I'm proud of the fact that the Democratic Party is now thought of as the party of fiscal responsibility. We're pleased to take that mantle.
That's the dunce cap.
Listen, when I left the White House at the end of the Clinton-Gore administration, I think we had created 23 million new jobs.
Thanks to Denny Hastert and the Republicans in Congress.
Well, we were happy to work with
we did. We worked really well together.
Cheney, who said the deficits don't matter.
I don't know. He's probably still in the White House. Listen, that deficits do matter after a certain
Ronald
point.
Reagan
And we're reaching that point.
Big enough to take care of itself. You guys are pretty blithe and have a good time about deficits when you're in office. It's when you're out of office you complain about them.
I'm not complaining. I'm saying that the Democrats are going to be running everything. They're going to be running into some big budget realities, and they're going to find ways. I mean, if you're in any kind of business, you're going to be skinned a little bit for everything because you have to deal with this deficit.
Let me ask you a political question.
Okay, sure.
We're going to have economics for a second. Barack Obama said, I'm going to do the following things. He keeps saying it. I'm going to do something on health care. He's got Ted Kennedy working on it and Baucus working, perhaps Senator Clinton if she stays in the Senate. He's going to do something on a middle-class tax cut, an absolute oath he's taken. There's going to be a middle-class tax cut for 90% of the people. He's going to create 5 million green jobs. He says so. If he doesn't do it, you guys will weld him. You'll kill him.
The first thing he's going to deal with is an economic crisis.
Yeah.
And that's the first thing you need to deal with. And from there, everything else flows. Campaign promises are campaign promises that usually are ignored as soon as you get to be president. And now he has to deal with reality, and he also has to deal with reality with a Democratic Congress who has their own spending plans. This is going to be very hard. This is not going to be easy, Chris. You can't just print this money. And if you do...
You're trying to bore us to death, aren't you?
I'm trying to bore you.
This is the most boring. This is the kind of boring...
Show me the money.
Chris. See, you guys are in office. The President of the United States, President George W. Bush, who's still our president, didn't veto a single spending bill. He signed every spending bill for 8 years, and now you're saying the new president should not sign these bills.
What
do you
think?
think?
You a prediction right now. I'll actually
you guys are boring, principled people out of office, but when you're in office, it's one hot check after another.
Well, I've become fiscally responsible.
I'm glad you admitted you're two-faced of your forked tongue here.
No, not at all.
Go ahead.
I would bet that Barack Obama moves boldly, moves quickly on all these areas you just mentioned, and I bet John and his party,
why does he have to
because the country's ready, and that's what we need. That's what he promised he's going to deliver. And by the way,
Emanuel,
no.
bosses around the Democrats says this: the times are so bad that even Republicans will join,
and they will. I bet they will.
Well, it depends.
Especially Republicans afraid to get beat next time.
It depends on the issue. If it's S-chip, yes. If it's Medicare expenses, some will. A big universal health care plan that hits small businesses the hardest, that's going to be a tough one for them to take. And it's going to be hard for the blue dogs. That guy from Utah who's sleeping on the cot, that's going to be hard for him to take. There are going to be a lot of blue dogs that are worried about the fiscal responsibility issue, and a lot of them campaign on that.
What is this? You worked on the Hill more recently than I did. Yeah. What's with the 40 guys, I guess they're mostly men, living on their cot? They do get $160 or $170 a year. Can't they afford an apartment, a small basement apartment somewhere, roommate with somebody?
Actually, a lot of them can't because
tuition bills,
kids going to college, and frankly,
I'm rooting for them.
Me too. It's tough.
I hope they take that shower they keep talking about. They don't just talk about it. Anyway, thank you, Mike Feldman, the big spender, John Ferry, who's become a tight-lipped, tight-pocketed Republican now that he's out of office.